to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman, and I am here with my friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman. Unfortunately, as we record this, we are not here with our pop culture aficionado, and we will get to why in 1 second, because today on the show, we got a lot going on. We have Hayden Christensen, who you know as Anakin Skywalker, most likely from the Star Wars movies, but he's also been in so many other interesting movies. And
Shattered Glass,
Life is a House, Jumper. I enjoyed talking with Hayden. It was cool to meet him and have a conversation with him, and I think you guys will enjoy that conversation, which we will get to in a bit. He's got a movie coming out August 24th called Little Italy, if you want to check that out, with Emma Roberts, Danny Aiello, Alyssa Milano, shot right here in downtown Toronto. Also on the show, Max is going to talk about how he hosted his favorite podcast. He sat in. They had him as a guest host on The Gist with Mike Pesca. You took over.
Yeah, Pesca's on vacation, and I got the call.
We're going to talk about that. Also, I had a Saturday night out with my dad in Hamilton, Ontario. I will talk about that because it was a good night with my dad, who we affectionately refer to as Roy Boy.
Roy Boy.
And unfortunately, one thing we don't have in this opening is Shane Christian Cunningham, our beloved pop culture aficionado.
Shane is not happy that he's not here right now.
Well, Max, let the people know why you've deprived them of Shane.
Because we realized we were looking at the calendar of this week. Tonight was the only time we could do an open with me involved. Because tomorrow, the Arkells are practicing. The next day, Arkells have a photo shoot, and it conflicts with Shane's dessert antics.
And Shane had already gone back to Hamilton tonight. We're recording this at like 9 o'clock at night in Dan Hamilton's place.
Yeah.
We're winging it at this point. But Shane had already left. Yeah. He's upset that this is how the Eagles broke up, man.
I know.
We got to keep it together.
So I apologize to Shane.
Apologize to the listeners.
Yeah, no, you know what though? I'm going to say something a little controversial. When this podcast started, the open was just you and I. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's the kind of thing that Shane will be furious
You're
about.
Going to get angry listener mail from Shane.
From Shane.
All right, Max, so you sat in for Mike Pesca. You love this podcast.
Okay, let me tell you this story. There's a show from Slate magazine, which is a pretty big, prominent U.S. kind of political news online magazine. It's called The Gist, and it's a daily show. I listen to it every day. So about 2 weeks ago, we got a DM from Mike Pesca, because I've interacted with him a little bit. I've emailed him. I've met him once in person, that they needed a guest host for when he was away on vacation this week. And I think it's in my nature just to say yes to stuff.
Yeah.
And I was really excited about it. Obviously, it's a big American podcast. It's kind of a cool opportunity for me. And because I'm such a consumer I'm a bit of a political junkie. I'm a consumer of all these political podcasts. I thought, it can't be that hard. I can do it. You know, it's kind of have that attitude that it'll all turn out okay. But when I got thinking about actually preparing for the episode today, I started thinking, like, oh my God, this is actually a lot of work, because I realized our podcast is mostly just us winging it.
Sure.
It's mostly us talking shit. I mean, we do research for the interviews, but again, it's like interviews with people that are actors or directors. The stuff that he talks about on his show is like real deal, fact-based, like political reporting. So I was thinking about, it's like, oh man, like, this is going to actually take some research. So I requested to interview Daniel Dale, who's the Toronto Star reporter, he has like 350,000 Twitter followers. He's made a name for himself for covering Rob Ford when he was the mayor of Toronto, and now he is the Donald Trump lie checker.
Yeah.
So he documents every single lie. So I was like, oh man, this guy's a very serious political reporter. I started doing research on Daniel Dale, and that guy works so hard. He clearly doesn't sleep. He fact checks every single one of Trump's speeches on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Every public event that Trump speaks at, he will find the transcript and go through it. And I'm just thinking, like, man, this guy's job is so intense. So that was stressing me out. And then I was starting to think about the open and the close of the show.
Yeah, where you have to sort of do a monologue.
I have to do a monologue. And now for listeners, I highly recommend you check out the show when Mike Pesca hosts it. But every single day, Pesca writes an open that is somewhat topical. It's something kind of between like an essay that you'd write for your politics class in university, mixed with like an opinion piece, mixed with some comedy. Like, he's got a good sense of humor too. So he does that at the top and the bottom, and he does it every single day. And it's not like, the difference is, it's not like he's riffing like a comedian. It's not like he's just sort of talking shit. Like, there's a lot of podcasts that I love, like Bill Simmons or I don't know, Joe Rogan or...
Yeah, they're just looser.
They're just looser. Like, this is actually like, he is citing news articles. He's playing clips from the news. It's really like an intense thing. And the more I thought about it, I was like, man, this guy is just so much fucking smarter than me.
Well, he writes an informed and entertaining soliloquy every day and then performs it.
And he is seasoned. Like, he worked at NPR for 15 years before he worked at Slate. So, like, there is a recipe to his job that he is very well schooled in. There's a process to, like, how you put together an article, like an open like that and a close, that he is very aware of. And I don't know any of that. I listen to the show, and I've learned through listening to the show, but I don't technically actually know how to do it. So I started getting like more and more stressed, going like, oh my God, like, this is going to be a lot of work. My brain was starting to work in ways that it hasn't worked in, like, since I was in university.
Sure.
Almost 10 years ago.
Did you have that anxiety where you kept knowing that the day you had to actually execute this thing was coming?
Yeah. And I was trying to prepare, though, for it. I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to get the close, the spiel, which is the closing section of the show. It doesn't have to be as topical. The opening monologue has to be sort of day of. The spiel can be a little bit more...
Yeah, your musings. Something you've been thinking about.
Exactly. So I emailed my friend Matt, Book Club Matty, who listens to all the same podcasts I listen to. He is sort of the guy who feeds me all of my political news. He's like really good at, like, giving me interesting articles. And I flipped him a couple ideas for my open and close, and Matt goes, "That's stupid. That's terrible."
Just bluntly.
Yeah, he's like, "No, that's not interesting. That's no good. No, why would you say that? Why would you say you're going to get in trouble if you say that?" The one suggestion I thought was okay, Book Club Matty was like, "No, fuck that. Stupid idea." But I was like, fuck it. I got to start somewhere. So I flipped it to the producers of the show. There's two producers of The Gist and Mike Pesca. And they both were like, "Oh, this is great. This is awesome." So they gave me a little confidence.
Good.
So that was on the weekend. Now, I did the open and the interview on Monday. Today's Tuesday. We're recording. The episode just came out. This morning, though, I had to do the open because, again, it had to be sort of day of. I got home last night, Monday night, and I didn't have anything. And it reminded me of being in school where you have to write an essay.
Classic.
And it's due the next day at 7 a.m.
You left it to the last minute.
I left it to the last minute, and I was so stressed out. I was like, my brain was actually hurting. I was like sitting in the living room, and I was just like trying my best to type and like trying to get ideas. I was calling people. I was like looking for suggestions. And then like Lauren comes in the room, and Lauren's like, kind of stays out of like my professional life. She's just generally very encouraging. Yeah. She goes, "Max, why did you decide to do this? You seem like you're having a miserable time." I'm like, "I am." I was like, hopefully when it comes out, I'll be really proud of it and I can brag about it. But yeah, I'm having a terrible time. She's like, "Max, in the 8 years I've known you, I've never seen you work this hard." Wow. Which was funny because I was like, I think you're right. And the funny thing is that like, I think I have a reputation of being a hard worker within the context of the band. like in the context of like, people in the music industry go, "Oh, that guy Max, he works really hard."
Yeah, of course. Up against like boozy musicians, you're gonna look like you're fucking Steve Jobs, obsessing over the fucking new Apple computer.
Exactly. But as I was going through this, it really just hammered home the simple point that everything I do is kind of full of shit. Like none of the brain power that I have to use as part of my job like actually requires like any like fact checking or verification. It's all sort of like instinctive, creative sort of garbage. Like with my job as a guy in a band running sort of a small business with 5 friends. And I was just like, I have no idea how these guys do it every day. Anyway, I recorded the open this morning. And again, the producers of the show couldn't be nicer. They're helpful, but they're also like, this is just another day at the office for them.
Of course.
And so meanwhile, I want to kind of get emotional about this whole experience. Of like, oh my God.
They have another one to do tomorrow.
They're like, okay, yeah, good job, man. Okay, cool. Gotta go. I was like, same thing with Daniel Dale. Daniel Dale, he grew up in Thornhill. He's a Toronto guy. He had no idea who I was. Not that he needed to know who I was, but he's like, there's an article in the Walrus about Daniel Dale. Yeah. About how he was doing like this interview with CBC with Anna Maria Tremonti. And like while he's doing an interview on the phone, he had 250 tabs of every major newspaper across America open, gleaning them. He goes through every single one. He finds one interesting, unique quote that some other reporter probably hasn't found, and then tweets it out. And he did that all on the phone
while he's doing the interview.
And so that's all I was thinking about. I was like, I wonder what other stuff he's doing right now.
You know what I think though? Whenever like that can seem intimidating. You hear that and you go, oh my, and you marvel at it because it's so foreign to you and your process.
Yeah.
But just like you want to sit down at a piano and do it, that's what gets him off. Like people that are that good and work that hard at their job, it doesn't necessarily feel like 100% work. I think he gets something out of it.
Sure, you're right, and I also totally agree.
I think he might say, no, that's not true. I work, it's like, it's not that you not work hard, but it's like if you don't enjoy the process, he must. I don't know him, but I'm just saying when you go that hard at something and you're that sort of like intense about it and involved, you must get something pure out of it.
Of course. And also I think there's something to the fact, like, people that are really good at math go, I can never write an essay. Yes. And then people that are really good at essay writing say, I can never do math. So it is a skill set. But I think the thing I really learned was that the way I've sort of outfitted my life, it's been pretty stress-free. Like I think I work better when I'm not, my brain isn't pounding.
Sure.
And overworked. Like I figure out a way to be pretty even keel about stuff, and that's because I generally get a good night's sleep, and I only do things that I'm good at. The second I have to do something I'm not good at, I just outsource it immediately. Whether it comes to music stuff or stuff around the house or this podcast. Like honestly, if there's something I don't know how to work that machine that we're recording on right now. So anyway, it was an interesting exercise to do something that you just like haven't had to work that part of your brain in a long time. Anyway, the episode comes out. I haven't been this nervous to listen to something that I've done, like literally ever. Like more so than any other recording or this podcast or anything. Because it's just like, again, it's all very foreign and new. And I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. Maybe I built up in my head that it was gonna be terrible.
Yeah, you set your expectations.
I set my expectations very low, and they kind of just got above the low bar. So I was kind of happy with my performance. So I never want to do that again.
You wouldn't do this again?
I mean, maybe I would. Now that we got one in the can.
Do you think that at some point in the next couple of weeks, you're going to get very drunk, and just as you're trying to go to bed at night, you're going to listen to yourself on that podcast?
Oh, definitely. It sounds like you're speaking from experience.
No, I know. I've heard of people that do that when they're, why does the Noel Gallagher interview have so many spins? I don't know. It's just me going home drunk with my earbuds in. It's like,
that was cool.
I'll sleep on the couch, honey. I'm just going to listen to somebody else's podcast. That's great. I'm so glad it turned out, man.
Yeah, it was just like a really interesting exercise for me.
Dan Hamilton just brought us a couple beers. We are recording this at Dan Hamilton's place, like we said.
Yeah. We got to give this place a studio name.
We do. Yeah. Every place we've ever hung out in over the last decade, we've given a nickname.
So we got one for this place, Dan?
We've hung out at the Dern. We've hung out at the Dean. We hung out at Veer Mansion. We hung
the
out
Onyx.
At the Kip. The Onyx.
Tried to call it the Chill Box after Virgil.
Oh, we tried to call it the Chill Box after Birchall.
Yeah, it's got good AC.
It does have good AC.
They never really caught on that name, though.
Do you think that the listeners of the pod now know that the Nut is, in fact, Adam Birchall?
I like believing that they don't know, that they haven't pieced it together. Despite the fact that we say Adam Birchall, I mean the Nut, like every episode. Okay, give me your Saturday night, though. You said you had a good time on Saturday night.
Oh, man. Well, this weekend was, I feel like, a really fun weekend for a lot of reasons. On Friday night, all the Champagne Boys basically got together because our friend Dylan Hideki is in a band called The Dill. Mm-hmm. And drumming for him is our band, San Sebastian, Pumps, The Racket. Our former drummer, Ted Patterson, who we love, Rocksteady Teddy, amazing drummer. He drums for Dill's band.
Yeah.
So all of us went out and saw it at Casbah, this small club in Hamilton, and that was a great night.
It was an awesome night. It
was an old school night.
We haven't had like a Champagne Boys night in a while. We talk about the Champagne Boys all the time, but the reality is that, I mean, this is in part because I'm in Toronto, you're in Toronto, Dan's in Toronto, but having a night with everybody around was felt like old times.
In Hamilton, we were rolling like 14 deep. It was a really fun time. The reason I bring that up is because I decided to stay in Hamilton. Danik and I were in town, and my dad found out I was in town, so he
started sniffing around.
Yeah, he's hitting me up. He's like, hey, let's hang out. I'd love to hang. I'd love to see you. I could use an ear and a beer, which I thought was a pretty good saying. I'm like,
did he make it that?
That's what he said. I'm sure he's heard it somewhere.
That's cool. I like that.
And so I was sitting with Dan, and I'm like, maybe I'll go hang out with my dad, because my brother wasn't around. My brother was supposed to be around. He had a birthday. So I'm like, all right. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So I'm like, let's go hang out. I'm like, where do you want to hang? He's like, let's hang on the mountain, because we were on the mountain anyway. In Hamilton, for those of you that don't know, there's a downtown, and then there's like an escarpment, so everyone calls it the mountain.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go to this karaoke bar. I've been told it's Hamilton's premier karaoke bar. It's called Tracy's.
That is the name of a premier karaoke bar.
And my dad, he goes, let's meet at Tracy's. I'm like, oh, it's going to be that kind of night. All right. I'm like, and I just think we're meeting for, a beer. And I'll lend him an ear. So I get there, and I was like, Dad, I'll be there at 9:45. Are you good to be there for 9:45? He's like, I'll be there 9:45 sharp. I'm sitting there at 9:45. I get a text. He's like, I'll be there in about 25 minutes. So now I'm just alone sitting in Tracy's with all the karaoke people having a drink. Daddy-O finally shows up. He's like, my boy, blah, blah, blah. We're talking, catching up. Actually having a really good time, good chat. And he's like, so what's going on tonight? What are we doing? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, we going downtown. I'm like, Dad, I thought we were just getting together for a beer on the mountain. I'm like, I'm going to shut it down pretty early. He's like, come on, because it's a Saturday night. He's like, we got to do something. I don't know, Dad. My phone buzzes. It's our good friend Peak. And because we'd been out the night before for the Dills concert, Peak just wrote, any chance you're in town to do a back-to-back?
Ooh.
And I was shocked because I was like, Peak's doing a back-to-back?
And Peak is a beacon of health.
I know.
Have you seen that guy's body? He does not do back-to-backs.
No, it's depressing.
You don't get a body like that by doing back-to-backs.
No, maybe back-to-back crunches like 50 times in a row. But anyway, so I go, Dad, you know what? Actually, I'm like, a couple of my buddies are downtown if you want to go. I'm like, Pete just reached out. He's like, oh, Pete, I love Pete. He's a good wingman. My dad's recently single. So I was like, okay. So I go, Pete, I'm with Roy Boy, but we might be down to come downtown. What are you guys up to? And Pete goes, we're actually going to this 1-year anniversary of a drag show at This Ain't Hollywood.
Okay.
Dan, do you know the name of that drag show?
Something polyester queer.
Yeah, it's called Polyester. So Polyester is the show that's been going on in Hamilton for a year. This is their anniversary. He's like, come to the drag show. I'm like, Dad, everyone's downtown at This Ain't Hollywood. My dad's like, I love This Ain't Hollywood. I'm like, but it's a drag show, which will be really fun. It'll be really joyous. My dad goes, huh. Okay. And I didn't really know how my dad would take it. He's like, I'm down. I'm like a progressive man. I'm like, okay, great. Let's do this. He goes, but I'm going to sing one song before we go. I go, okay, but they know him there. So he basically goes up to the thing, gets it happening, comes back. He orders like another Coors Light, and he's like, settle in. They're like, Roy, come to the stage. And he goes up, and the song starts. It's Proud Mary by Tina Turner. So he's like, I left a good job in the city. And then all of a sudden, I'm not making this up. All of these like women of Tracy's start getting up, and they start dancing to it. They start like moving slow, and my dad's like on the microphone. He's like, working for the man every night and day. And I know the song is going to pick up at some point.
Because is that the rolling down the river?
Yeah. Do. And I'm rolling. So I'm like, what's he going to do when they get to this point? Like, is he going to do like the foot stamp like Tina Turner and dun, 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 dun. And sure enough, that's what he does. But the women all start doing it too. So he's like high five, and there's a little stage there and a mic stand, and he's acting like Steven Tyler, kicking the mic stand out, pulling it back, high fiving people. I got some of this on my Instagram.
Oh my god,
it was so funny, and I was like, this is why my dad hangs out at Tracy's. He's a fucking rock star.
I thought you were gonna say this is where I get it from.
Oh no, I did have a mini reflection. I'm like, yeah, this is.
It's like you are the first guy to go up and during karaoke.
It is true. It's true. So then he finishes that. And then he comes. Oh, and this is the other funny thing is the song ends. But in karaoke, like sometimes a song will have like an outro. Mm-hmm. It's like rolling. But so he like drops the mic on a high point and walks off. But there's still 40 seconds of the song left playing off. But I guess he was like, gotta leave in the sweet spot. He's high fiving dudes at the bar.
That's the way to do it. You always leave early.
Leave him wanting a little more.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's like, let's go downtown.
Okay. Walks out of the bar.
Drop the mic.
That's awesome.
So we're on our way downtown. We're going to this drag show. And I felt bad. I didn't feel like I needed to say, Dad, like, I know you've never been to something like this where it's going to be like a little outlandish and everybody here is like, really just having a good time. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of love. And people are going to get wacky and it's going to be so fun. But you're going to see some things that maybe you aren't used to just like hanging around with.
And also the contrast between hanging out on the mountain at Tracy's versus coming downtown to a drag show. It's kind of like opposite ends of the kind of cultural spectrum on a certain level. Yeah. And
Hamilton and correct me if I'm wrong to say this, is sort of newly progressive in the last sort of like half decade as like more young people sort of assert themselves and have these nights, So my dad, old school Hamilton, is not. I was just like, certain jokes or you might want to say, and my dad, to his credit, was like, you think I'd embarrass you, son? This is him in the cab, and I'm like, oh, geez, I've offended him now. He's like, I think I'd embarrass you. He's like, I can handle myself. He's like, I've been having a good time since the 70s in Hamilton. He's like,
I've seen it all.
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of one of those.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you think I haven't
You
seen
don't think
things?
I've stumbled into a gay bar and have a great time?
Yeah. And I'm like, good for you. Let's get it.
Yeah.
So we get in there, and sure enough, like any drag show, I think the main hostess was like from Toronto. But so she gets up on stage, and she's like, all right, all you fucking bitches, who wants a shot? And then like people are on stage, and she's making all the typical jokes you would see it when he sings. And it was very funny. And my dad's like kind of watching, and then all of a sudden they're like, all right, everybody, like after they do the shots, they're like, let's do some dancing. It's like, and people start dancing, and I'm talking to Peak, and it's our friend Peak's there, Jay Kelly's there, Felix is there,
Yeah,
Psycho's
amazing.
there. Psycho, if you remember from the last episode, the one with the boner.
Yeah.
So they're all having a good time. I'm talking to them, and Jay Kelly taps me, and I look, and my dad is in the middle of the crowd with his arms up like one of those floppy things at a car dealership, just dancing, just like that's it. And I was like, wow. I'm like, Roy's getting it. This is so fun. Roy's getting after it. Jay Kelly then sort of just pontificates in only the way Jay Kelly can. He goes, you know, your dad is really surprising me right now, and I don't know why. I think it's because I thought your dad would sort of like maybe not embrace this, but then when I thought about Roy, I'm like, it totally makes sense. I was like, okay, Jay. I was like, so he's having a good time.
And by the way, Jay is my old roommate from 85 Arkell days. He's one of like the most beautiful guys inside and out.
100%.
And that is exactly the way he'd say it.
Do you want to hear another really funny Jayism?
Yeah, give it to
So I guess Jay, earlier in that night, they'd been in line to get into some indie band show like around the corner in Hamilton, and I guess they waited in line for like sort of tickets released at the door, but there was only 20, and Jay and this friend of his who's like, I don't know, like 42 or something, were in line, and they got cut off right at that, so they didn't get in. But I guess there was these girls standing in front of them like chatting them up or whatever, and so they didn't get into the show. And then as they were walking away from the show, his older friend turned to Jay and he's like, we still got it, I guess, because the girls were talking to them. And Jay goes, but I started thinking, what do you mean still got it? He's like, I'm only 30. I'm supposed to still have it. Maybe you still have it. He goes, but I never even thought that I lost it. It was the funniest fucking thing. I'll probably cut that out. But
that's good. Leave it. You gotta leave it.
It was so Jay because he was so like just matter of fact about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, so it ended up being this great night. My dad had like the best time ever, danced up a storm, and then jumped in a cab at like, 1:30 in the morning or whatever.
Wow.
And then the rest of us just like closed it out. Max, should we talk about Hayden Christensen?
Let's get into it.
All right, so like we said up the top, Hayden is in a movie called Little Italy that is out August 24th.
My one question.
Yeah.
Because I was like, is he even Italian? Is Emma Roberts Italian? And I looked it up, and his mom is half Italian, so technically
That's
he's
right.
one. Did you ask the question? Was being an Italian a deal breaker for the producers of the movie?
I certainly did.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
And he answered it.
Okay, good.
But we'll leave it as a tease.
Good.
And people can listen to the interview.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got this interview actually through E1.
Yeah, that's right.
'Cause there's a connection with the management and all
Yeah.
that. So Hayden comes in, and we're set up the gear, and we start just chatting, kind of like getting to know each other at first, because there was kind of a delay before we could start doing the interview. And so I was like, I got to kind of make small talk with them, but I don't want to kill any of my questions that
Sure.
I have lined up. So I'm just like, hey, I'm like, you're a dad? He's like, I am. Yeah. I'm like, I've actually got a daughter on the way in October. He's like, what? He goes, man, that's amazing. Like, puts his hand across we were sitting on a couch, shakes my hand, and then he was just like, I was like, give me some sage advice, man. And then he just gave me like the most genuine advice, and was really sort of inquisitive and nice. Then we get into the interview.
By the way, manager Ash, I texted her. I was like, any Hayden questions? And she said, oh, get him to talk about dad stuff.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's funny that you did that anyway.
Whenever I have to actually do small talk, it's always interesting because it's like I can't go into the areas that I'm going to touch on in the interview. Yeah. So it's like you always just have to find something that you're not really going to get to. So anyway, we do the interview. We touch on a lot of the Star Wars stuff and sort of what it did to him as a 19-year-old to get that role. And honestly, he was pretty open. And we'd heard before, it's like, hey, let's stick to the movie. Like it's not something, but that's not what we do on this podcast.
No, we defy publicists all the time.
It's true. Well, it's like
that should be our Twitter bio.
Well, and honestly, that's not our mission. That's not what we ever want to do in these conversations. So it's like, yeah, let's do a couple about the movie, and then let's get into some like interesting stuff. Like let's talk like humans, not
let's
a
talk about the
marketing machine.
process. Let's talk about your life story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we get into all that, and then after the interview, I think I'm allowed to tell this stuff. But
Yeah.
basically, we're waiting because he's going to do one of Shane's digital desserts. So they have to set the setup with all the cameras and everything. And Shane's intern was there, Veronique, who you guys heard last week, won the intern contest. And so I got to sit with Hayden, and Hayden goes, "Is it like?" He's like, "How long before the setup is done?" And Ken, who's producing, it's like about 5. He's like, Hayden's like 5 for a smoke or 5 for not. And he's like, okay, how do I get out? But we were kind of in this weird area where he couldn't know where to go. So he's like, Ken's like, there's this alleyway. And I'm like, I'll take you. I knew exactly what he's talking about. I've been working in that building for years. So I'm like, I'll take you. And I'm thinking that all the people are going to come. None of the people come. So it's just me and Hayden, and we're walking down 5 flights of steps. And he says again, he goes, man, he's like, thanks for that interview. That was a good conversation, man. And he's like, it was thoughtful, and we touched on a lot of things. And I go, thank you for sort of giving interesting and thoughtful answers. Because, the Star Wars thing, I didn't know I know you've probably been answering it forever. He's like, no. He was like, listen, he's like, if people know what they're talking about or do their research or ask it in a thoughtful way, he's like, I can talk about Star Wars whenever. He's like, it's when people don't know what the hell they want to ask. They just know they want to somehow say something about Star Wars.
Nah, that's so interesting. You're totally right. Because sometimes I think about Arkell's interviews, and it really kind of just comes down to like who the person is who's asking the question, what other questions they've asked around. So it's like you could ask a really basic question, but if you've proved to me that you know what you're talking about, and then you didn't just pull the one thing from Wikipedia that was the name brand thing.
Yeah.
It's like, for instance, like on Arkell's Wikipedia, I think there's like a question about. So there's a factoid about us being in NHL 13, like being in the soundtrack, and it's a pretty mundane Arkell statistic. And if someone says, "So you were in NHL 13, huh?"
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, we were. But if someone were to say, "Okay, so what are the mechanics behind getting into a video game? What are the mechanics like? Is that something you guys want to do?
Do you seek it out?
Do you seek it out? Is
Yeah.
it a good promo vehicle? Like." And again, it's using the same fact, but it's presented in a much different way.
Absolutely.
And so that's so interesting that he recognized that, because it's never about like it's about how it's being presented, and it's about how what the angle of the question is, and it's not just about like a simple I pulled something from your Wikipedia page.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so we go down the 5 flights of stairs. We're just chatting, and then we go into the alleyway. And he lights up, and we're sitting there.
And you did the thing where you're a nervous teenager. We're like, yeah, I smoke.
Hey, Hayden, you got a butt for me? Just a couple cool guys. No, so he smoked, and because the MMVAs are happening, they're building a stage right beside us, and it's kind of cool because it's just him and I talking, and now we're just like, we're the same age, so we're just literally talking as dudes, who have the same frame of references. And we talked a little bit about when he first got to LA, and obviously with the Star Wars wave, and then I talked a lot about like being in San Sebastian, being in a touring band, and just like sort of like, I guess, opportunities that come when you're sort of luckily in a thing. Like, we were signed to a record label, so it was like you get to go to free parties and open bar and all that. And he's like, yeah, that's like when I first got there. It's like you could do that every night for the rest of your life, but then you wake up. And anyway, it was a really good conversation.
I think that the idea of having access to that lifestyle at a young age is really interesting. And like I could say that you went through that, I've been through that, but compared to someone who's gone through that in Hollywood, which is a whole other level, is interesting. And
he came out of his experience a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
I've got to get up in the morning and go to work.
But you got a podcast though.
That fucking right I do. But so it was like this really cool sort of like hang, where we just kind of like chilled, shot the shit.
It's cool, and you guys are both GTA guys.
Yeah,
the same age.
So, well, he lives out like in a farm. Well, we talked about this in the interview a bit, and then we got a lot more into it. And anyway, it was just like I kind of really going into it. You're like, oh yeah, it's the guy from Star Wars, and we do the appropriate research and all that stuff. But after kind of hanging with him, and he's very low maintenance and low key. He's like, yeah, man, like let's just, he's like cool guy. So I came away very impressed, and I really enjoyed both conversations. The interview and then the off the record stuff was great. And he was a really cool guy, and he's the sort of guy you'd want to get a beer with for sure.
Cool.
And then he went into Shane's digital dessert, and apparently went great. So you guys will see that at some point, but or maybe Shane might even talk about it in the dessert or down the road. So if you are tuning in for the first time because maybe you're a huge Hayden Christensen fan, we have over 100 episodes with actors, musicians, comedians, and an astronaut, actually. All sorts across the spectrum. Please check out all of our episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. Please check us out, Mike on Much. If you want to follow us, at Mike on Much on Twitter and Instagram. Maxie, do you want to get to Hayden Christensen?
Let's get to it.
going to jump right into this thing.
Let's do it.
I kind of want to start, obviously, with Little Italy because that's the movie you're here to talk about. And you've had a number of sort of romantic leads in films. And I thought when I was watching this film that you and Emma Roberts had really good chemistry. Did you know her before you started doing this film?
No, I did not. I'd met her once in passing years ago. But no, we didn't know each other. We met, I think, literally like maybe a week before we started filming. But you know, she's a very cool girl, and we had like a natural rapport. She was great to work with.
Do you know that right away? Like you said, like you had a natural rapport. So is that a sort of, it's like within 10 minutes, you're like, you know what, this is going to work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever had them where you're like, this is not going to work?
Yeah.
So what's the workaround there then when it's not going to work? Is it like...
It's a lot more work.
right. That's where the acting comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, Emma and I hit it off, and you know, the work in this movie is fun too. So it's, you know, it's very lighthearted, and you know, we were on set laughing every day. So it was an easy movie to be a part of, and easy characters to kind of get into.
Like with any co-star, I would imagine, whether it's like your female lead or whomever, someone playing your father, how important to you is rehearsal? Meaning, like, I need to get in a room with these people and figure it out, or is like, are you able to sort of walk onto a set and be like, let's do it?
It really depends on I guess, you know, the film and the material. I'm a big fan of rehearsing and just as much preparation as possible before you get to set. I just think you're better off. But you know, sometimes the process just doesn't allow for it, and you've got, you know, actors with different schedules, and you can't show up until, you know, right before the movie starts. So, you know, on this one, we didn't have a lot of that. It was like, you know, maybe, you know, a few days of really spending time together, and then we were filming.
It's funny, when I was watching the trailer leading up to this film, and just I guess the marketing in general, it reminds me of sort of, you know, like My Big Fat Greek Wedding is sort of this, I guess, operating paradigm for movies like this, where it like speaks to a certain community, but it really can appeal to everybody. How cognizant are you guys of, when you make a movie like Little Italy, of that, where you go, oh, this is what we're trying to do with this film? Are you thinking about things in those terms, or are you thinking about things as far as like, what are my lines, who is my character, or are you like, I see the big picture? No,
I think you definitely try to you know, understand, you know, one, what your audience is, who your audience is, and you know, also, you know, you want the movie to work. So if you don't have any sort of concept of where you're going, it's a little misguided, I find. I mean, you're not working with like an end result in mind, but you have an idea of where you want to get to, and so I'm sort of aware of that. You know, I think more so at the beginning, and then once you kind of get into the flow of it, and you're really sort of connecting with the character, then you're just sort of in it, and you're just having fun with the role.
Yeah. Are you someone that tends to think big picture process stuff, as far as like, I guess, the movie business and just making a film? It's hard to make a film in general, right? Like front to back, and then market it. And there's all these other sort of ancillary things that have nothing to do with the creative work, which is like just you and another actor.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I'm you know, cognizant of it when I'm reading a script and I'm sort of considering a project, but at the same time, I'm not like so career focused. It's really just about whether or not the story appeals to me, whether or not I think that there's an audience for the story, and whether or not I think it would, you know, be a process that, one, I'll enjoy, and two, will sort of, you know, challenge me as an actor and give me something to do.
Well, because this film obviously takes place in Little Italy, and you know, there's a lot of Italian tropes and all of that stuff. I read on Wikipedia that your mom is part Italian.
Yeah.
Was that a deal breaker for the producers?
No, I mean, you know, when I read the script the first time, I was like, I don't know if I'm the most obvious fit for this, but I am part Italian. I do know that community, and my grandma's full Italian, and so I have like lots of cousins and aunts and uncles who are very much from that community.
You understand the world. I
understand the world enough to sort of, you know, make an attempt at it. But, you know, that's also part of the attraction for me is, you know, I get to play a character, and just sort of like understanding all of the sort of Italian mannerisms and that sort of stuff was fun for me. So I got to focus on bringing out my inner Italian.
With performing, it's always a fine line between like you said, capturing the mannerisms and then overdoing a caricature. How do you find the line?
Totally. Yeah, no, it's a fine line. And especially for this one, because you can it's easy to sort of go big with the Italian stuff.
Yeah.
And I played with it, and sometimes I would go too big, and I'd have to pull it back. But that's the process. Is you have to find that balance.
Yeah. Well, going back a bit, you've had the sort of success that a lot of Canadian actors haven't, but you had this sort of like lineage where it was like, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, and then you have this sort of rocket ship to the moon with Star Wars. By the time you got Star Wars, did you feel like, even though you were young, like you'd hit a ceiling in Canada? Like, were you thinking like, this is going to be amazing because I'm going to sort of get out of, not a smaller bubble, but obviously like, yeah, exactly that, a smaller bubble?
I think as an actor, you always kind of have your sights set on Hollywood.
Yeah.
But the film community and just this industry in Canada is pretty healthy, so it's not like you need to go elsewhere. And the Star Wars thing just kind of came along, and it was an amazing opportunity. I didn't really think it was really that plausible because it was so big, but it worked out.
Yeah, and I think in the moment, how old were you when you got that?
I was 19. 19.
So in the moment, you realized this is a big fucking deal.
Oh,
I think.
Yeah.
And so as a young actor, are you going, I know what this means. Like, this is it. Like, this is a ticket to open a lot of doors. Or are you just going, I'm focusing on process and technique and sort of all of the actory things? Or are very aware of what this means for your life?
No, I was very focused on just the work. All of the stuff that came along with it, I tried to sort of keep on the periphery and just sort of focus on what I was doing as an actor. But it's such a crazy world, the Star Wars world, so it's hard to not sort of be daunted by just the size of it all. But that's how I dealt with it. I just sort of stayed focused on what I was doing as an actor.
Yeah, the micro, because the enormity it's like overwhelming if you allow yourself to even think about it. I think in that sense.
Yeah,
it's interesting. We've talked to a lot of people that had success young, whether it was like Josh Jackson or Jerry O'Connell, who was in Stand By Me, and we've talked a lot about how they sort of like framed things after the fact. And I'd read in an interview you said that you'd had a bit of difficulty sort of framing those Star Wars movies because you felt like you hadn't earned it. And that was the quote in this MTV piece that I read. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. But I read it on the internet, so I'm going to assume it's true. With time and perspective, do you, I guess, still feel that way? Or do you look at it more like, hey, everybody gets a break? Like, there's something almost noble about thinking of it like, oh, I didn't earn it.
I think for me, I came from sort of an athletic background where what you get out of something is what you put into it, and the Star Wars thing for me, that was such a life-changing experience, and it all happened so fast that there was something inside of me that kind of felt like it was maybe a little too fast, and I hadn't fully paid my dues yet, and that just kind of lingered in me a little bit. But that's sort of, what's crazy about this industry, too, is, you can make those sort of big shifts really quickly with just, a film sometimes.
Yeah, that's the nature of how the business can work. So that's what I mean. Have you parked those sort of like, those feelings now that you go, this is kind of how sometimes the game goes? Yeah,
I think I've probably made more peace with it now. But yeah, no, that was something I definitely felt for a little while.
Yeah. It's always interesting in these conversations. Like, I was going to say, essentially, like, I like to get to the heart of what someone's personality is like. And it's like, are you sick of answering Star Wars questions? Are you like, this is just a part of who I am, and I know those are going to come up in an interview? Because even me asking, I'm like, I want to ask because it's interesting, and our listeners are going to find it interesting, because anything on a grand scale is going to be fascinating to people. But then also, you're like, listen, I'm a dude that does plenty of work, and it's like, that was a long time ago. Or you're like, shit, people are going to ask me about that.
Yeah, I think I'm okay talking about Star Wars. It's been a big part of my life, and even though I'm not making the films anymore, it's still a big part of my life.
And you're a part of history, a lot of people's history, a collective sort of history. That's kind of the enormity of the franchise, I guess, as you were saying.
Yeah, and just the role that I played. I'm not looking to sort of run away from that and leave that in the past. That's something I was very proud to be a part of that and got to sort of leave my mark on a part of film history. So no, I'm happy to talk about it.
When you got the call as a 19-year-old that basically says you're going to do this, I can imagine you were very excited. Obviously, like you said, you know exactly what it meant.
Yeah.
But were you a sci-fi guy going into that?
I was a fan of the films. I wasn't a big sci-fi guy necessarily. I was like just a dedicated actor trying to sort of work on his craft. And I sort of come from the theater a little bit. I studied acting on stage, and so I was really more inclined towards just dramatic stuff and dramatic films and dramatic storytelling. But no, I mean I've always liked the genre. I like the sort of the escapism that it offers, and more so than most.
Right.
And I think especially sort of in today's climate, that vehicle for escapism becomes more and more necessary. And I think you sort of can see that just with the films that find real popularity now.
That's a fascinating thought. Meaning, like, we need escapism now more than ever in the current sort of, I guess, state of our society or political climate.
A little bit, I think there's some truth to that.
Are you a political guy?
Try not to be.
Right, you try to sort of stay apart from it.
Yeah.
And I guess we're Canadians, we're somewhat separate, although I guess we're seeing everything that's happening everywhere.
Yeah, it's a crazy world right now. But yeah, no, I stay out of the politics, and what's the line from that song? I get all the news I need from the weather report.
That's a pretty good line.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, actually, speaking of abstaining, is it feels like you don't have a presence on social media. I don't think you have a Twitter. I don't think you've posted on Instagram since like 2014.
I've never actually had an Instagram.
So that's just some other imposter.
Those are some other, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, I've never.
I got to take back those double taps.
I've never engaged in social media.
What's the thinking there? Because for I
don't know. There's probably a lot of reasons. Mostly I chalk it up to laziness. But I don't know. There's something about about being an actor and sort of participating in social media that seems slightly contrary or contradictive. I always liked the notion that as an actor there's like a sort of a magical act taking place, and I'd rather the audience know less about me in order for them to sort of believe in whatever this thing that we're trying to convince them of.
Sure, it's naturally artifice, and so it's like you want to keep that barrier. And then there's two sort of schools of thought about that, which is like, do you show how the trick is done? Like, you hear there's Song Exploders, a famous podcast where they get into how a song is made or what it's about. And other musicians are kind of like, nah, man, like, you take what you need to take from it. I don't need to sort of open the book and reveal everything. And it seems like, as far as actors go, you lean on that side. Yeah,
I mean, now it's like it's sort of a necessary tool for a lot of people in this industry, and really for myself as well. I should be, doing it, but
well, you're out here now promoting the movie.
Yeah, I do this stuff, but as far as like having a social media presence and letting people into my life, I've always just been a little bit reluctant to do that. But maybe one day you'll see me on Instagram or something.
I'll follow you.
Yeah.
Do you participate? Meaning, do you look? Like, meaning you're not an active participant, but are you an observer? Like, would you ever have like a Twitter where you're just kind of,
No, I don't. It's not really my thing.
It's not what you do with your time.
Honestly, like, I was a late adopter to the laptop and to the computer. Like, I didn't have my own laptop until like less than 10 years ago.
When did you get a cell phone? I was late to the cell phone.
No, I had a cell phone, although I gave up my cell phone for like a year, and I had no cell phone. This was like 5-6 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
How do people find you?
Email.
Okay, so whenever you got around your email on your new laptop, that's when you would.
Yeah, but that people couldn't really tolerate it that long, so eventually I got a cell phone again.
Well, what's it? They say Bill Murray has like an answering service.
He was kind of like my inspiration.
Really?
Bit. Yeah, I heard the story. Like Bill Murray only, he has a fax machine or something, and people have to contact him via fax. And I just thought that was awesome.
All his offers, everything, and when he gets around to the fax machine, then he might reach back out to you.
Yeah, but no, I also just sometimes need to disconnect and escape to the country, and it's hard to do that when you got a phone going off all the time.
Do you think that your disposition, the sort of like need to escape to the country or sort of disengage, is because of that sort of wave you got hit with at 19 and the instant stardom, or do you you think that's a reaction to that?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thing to go through that, and to have a healthy perspective on it, I think just takes time, and I think you gain that perspective just by sort of having time to reflect and sort of pulling back a little bit. But it's not like a natural sort of trajectory, to experience or to go through.
No.
So I think, for sure that sort of motivated me to move out to the country and pull back a little bit.
Just disconnect a little.
Sometimes, yeah.
Which is usually probably more healthy than however we're living right now.
Honestly, like moving out to the country was one of the best things I ever did. It's just a very healthy environment for me, and I just like it. It's no traffic, fresh air. It works.
Yeah, it's a good way to live.
Yeah.
Lastly, as we wrap up, you do seem like a really thoughtful guy when it comes to your career and sort of framing things in a sort of more macro sense than a micro sense. What do you want? What do you see happening over the next 10 years? What's the ideal for you?
I don't know. I love what I do. I love storytelling. That was always sort of my attraction to all of this, into filmmaking and the craft of acting, was just a love of storytelling. And so I definitely want to, continue to be a part of that. I could see myself getting behind the camera and maybe, directing something, soon, one day. But I don't know. I also, as I said, I'm not like super career minded. And so I do the work that appeals to me and that I'm passionate about, and when that comes along, great. And if not, I'm happy to hang it at my farm.
Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, man. Nice talking to you.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Welcome to The Dessert. We are joined obviously by our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. And Shane, I'm just going to give you the floor.
Okay, so here's the deal. I've been planning this for a few weeks. I have some, I won't call them kids, but some young aspiring filmmakers. Is that fair?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah. I have some people here with me that I've been trying to get in here for quite a while, and I've been trying to organize this with Max because you're an Arkells fan.
Huge Arkells fan, yeah.
And do you notice someone's missing here today?
I do notice someone's missing, yeah.
How does that...
Sorry, I am also an Arkells fan.
Yeah.
Both Arkells fans.
So you guys must have thought Max would be here, correct?
We thought so.
Are you disappointed?
No, because I know he's busy.
But you clearly are disappointed. You just don't want him to hear that.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're here to pitch to you, Shane, so...
What about you? Are you disappointed?
I don't often get disappointed.
She just kind of lives in constant disappointment.
I like
that.
Yeah.
Should our listeners know their names?
No.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
You do it how you do it. I'll step back.
So I got a message recently from just a random pod listener, and they were saying that, hey, The Dessert is my fave. Don't let Mike and Max strong arm you. You have a lot to offer. And I was like, okay, that's a weird kind of message, because
it sounds affirmational, like you write it to yourself in your notes.
Well, I don't really feel like you guys strong arm me, do you?
No, I wouldn't think that.
I said, much appreciated. I'm printing this out for backup if these guys ever get out of line. And then she sends me another message. She goes, they don't value your opinion.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, that's a little weird because I always kind of thought they did value my opinion. And then recently I go, okay, Max, just to confirm again, Thursday night, the people are coming in. I've organized something special. He goes, I can't do it. Have a photo shoot. I'm like, oh. He goes, yeah, Mike and I are just going to record the open tonight. I go, oh, I have this Hayden Christensen story I was looking to tell during the open. Do you not want to hear that? And he completely ignores me and just says, hey, Mike, so I'll be over around 7. And just doesn't even listen to me at all.
It was news to me as well. It wasn't some conspiracy. When he said, Mike and I record the open without you, I got the same text you did at the same time.
So I had this Hayden Christensen story that I guess we'll never see
No,
the
we're going
night
to
of.
save it, baby.
Okay, we'll save it for
Because you
later.
know that dessert is going to be, it's going to see the light of day, and we'll talk about it then.
Right, okay.
But are you mad at Max? You seem like you've got some unresolved hostility.
Well, it's just weird when you say something and he doesn't answer the question and he ignores me and goes straight to you and just says, no, I'm just going to show up and record the opening without me.
This is becoming very therapeutic, and we
Yeah.
have guests in the room just staring at
I
us.
just wanted to let you guys know why he's not here. And you and I both know your name is Josh, that you
Yeah.
and I have been working behind the scenes to make this happen.
We have. That being said, like I could see on the Arkells Instagram that something was happening to them like 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, all right. He might be busy.
Right.
Something may have come up. Yeah.
But I'll get to the point. What we're doing here is a Shark Tank-esque show, and you're going to present us with an idea for a web series. You sent me materials before,
Yes.
and I checked them out, and I was a little, not hurt, but I was just like, these guys, our humor doesn't exactly align.
Right.
Hey, gather around, all you motherfuckers, and everyone put your hands in the air.
Step right up, and watch my boy TJ take on his new challenger, Big Fat Mikey.
But guys, I'm scared.
Get in the trash can, pussy. You know the rules. What TJ says goes.
But I don't wanna.
You don't have a choice, bitch.
But I've done stuff in the past, too, that doesn't align with how I am now. So I thought rather than put it down, I'd give you guys a good shot to win me over and have me potentially produce your web series.
And so basically, I reached out to you.
Yes.
And then when you came back to me with, can I see some examples? We were like, well, shit, we are in a situation where like 3 or 4 of us in the group have just shot like higher budget, not high budget, but better looking projects that are like in editing mode.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, well, we can't send you a half finished thing. So what's something we have sitting around that's kind of funny, that kind of gives an idea that we make stuff?
I wouldn't go throwing around words like funny.
Yeah, I would say it got made. It has
something
has a
existed,
beginning, a middle, and an end. But yeah, so we were kind of like scrambling. We're like, well, crap. Hopefully, we get in the room with them and we can kind of sell them on an idea that is, I think, a lot more aligned with your sense of humor.
May I say I had nothing to do with the recess thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
You voiced one of the characters.
I voiced one of the characters. I did not write it or make it at all.
Because you had some harsh lines there that I don't know if I'd want my voice attached to.
I do not remember doing that at
Right.
all. I will also say.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember you doing that.
What character?
There was a lot of
female
expletives.
character.
Yeah, and there was a lot of swearing and probably. Yeah, no, it got dark. That's okay.
Guys, don't splinter before you pitch.
Yeah.
They're already falling apart, Shaney.
All right, but we're going to start Shane's Tank right now. Of course, Mike is going to be the host.
Sure.
And I've written some stuff for you.
And much like last week's episode, I've not read one part of
But you
what
did a
you've
great
written.
job with last week.
You were happy with that
Yeah.
work? Okay. And I'm trying to do this like the Shark Tank guy.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Welcome to Shane Tank, where creative people pitch to 3 extremely creative judges to see if one of them are interested in producing their creative project. If the judges hear a great idea, they will invest their own time and fight each other for a deal. Who are the judges? They are self-made creative experts who have carved out their own path, their own way in the Canadian entertainment industry. The Nut is a shrewd businessman who has never seen a good idea he didn't like. He went from DJing sweaty nightclubs to becoming marketing manager of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He recently lost weight, but he's ready to take a big bite out of a good idea. But he's also willing to take a bite out of a bad idea and shit it out.
I instantly regret doing this. Instantly.
Shane Cunningham. He's worked in television for a really long time, and when he sees something that's good, he knows it's good. But if he doesn't like what he sees, he's the type of guy to start shaking his head and will say no. And then there's Mike Veerman. That's me. I went from waiting tables at Swish LA to waiting for Noel Gallagher to stop talking so I could ask him another question.
You can lick my balls.
Now, my only question for you, Shane Tanker contestants, is, are you ready to present your idea?
I hope to God we are. I think so.
The following are actual negotiations between creatives and investors. The judges will invest their own time at their discretion. No offer is being made to or solicited from the listening audience.
And then read the intro part.
Entering the tank now are the creatives who are part of a comedy troupe. Troupe or trooped?
Troop.
You wrote trooped.
Well, I made a mistake.
Entering the tank now are the creatives who are part of a comedy troupe and are looking to have their web series produced by one of the judges. They had previously sent Shane a sample skit through an Instagram DM, but didn't exactly impress him with their content.
Get in the trash can, pussy.
Now, they're here to prove that they are better than the sum of their DMs.
That's good.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Nat.
My name's Josh Sharbit. I'm a writer, actor, producer. And this is...
I can do my own intro. My name is Sam, or Samantha Weiss for long. What am I? I'm a writer, producer, actor, improviser.
Yep, improviser. That's a big part of this. Yeah. Want us to take it away? Cool. So, yeah, web series is called Gentlemen of Taste. As you can see on the screen here, we have a very low resolution GIF collage of the 4 main characters, who we will get into in a moment. It is a comedy web series, 7 to 10 minute episodes, 10 episodes per season. And basically, it follows these 4 broke, ignorant morons who try to assert themselves into upper class society by posing as professional critics of the class of society they're trying to become a part of. They have no knowledge of what it takes to be in the upper class, what it takes to walk into the Share Club and actually belong there, or go to the Park Hyatt there.
Did you know the Nut has unlimited access to the Share Club?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah. Conceptually, the show revolves around the idea that they are going to try to get into these fancy places to review them, but kind of like a show like Nirvana the Band, where it revolves around the idea of them trying to get a show at the Rivoli. Not a whole lot of the plot of the show actually is closely tied to getting a show at the Rivoli. It's sort of a engine for them to explore Toronto and do crazy, weird guerrilla style filmmaking.
When you say guerrilla style, do you mean more guy in a monkey suit, or there's going to be people that are randomly involved that aren't aware they're on camera?
It can be both. We're not above it, but I think he means more like bringing a camera into an area.
I'd like to incorporate both on a regular basis.
So to be clear, there are or are not gorillas?
Yes.
I think monkeys are
yes, wasn't one of the
Wasn't a yes or no question.
I think monkeys are probably the funniest thing. Like, I watch them on YouTube all the time, so I would want to incorporate monkeys, but it's once again that thing where if, like, we're gonna try to get access to it. That's the whole point of the show, is like, we want to try to get access to things that we might not necessarily have access to, but we're going to try anyway.
And really, I think the essence of what would make the show exciting to viewers is it's kind of like stand in line for a place you know you're probably not going to get into. Your friend who's completely wasted, they're sure as hell not going to get into it. And all you know is you're going to try to do your best to get in there. You don't know what's going to happen. And if you do get in there, well then, huge success, that's great.
You have a tight grip on that mic.
I do. I'm trying to pass it around a bit more.
Men, am I right?
Wow.
That's good.
That was good. Yeah, so I'll jump into a few of the, or I'll let Sam jump into a few of the episode examples because...
How gracious of you.
That's that. Yes. Now we're learning here. This is good.
Yeah, take it away.
Episode examples may include, for one, I mean, to kick things off, they want to establish themselves. They need to build a following and stuff. And a free way to do that is a garden party, a very fancy garden party at Trinity Bellwoods. What else?
Important to note, they will not be paying for any sort of alcohol permits. They're just going to be bringing this stuff in. They don't care, or they don't even know, again, what it is that is required to throw a party in Trinity Bellwoods.
And you're willing to kind of risk arrest?
100%. I think that's what's exciting about shows like Nathan For You and Nirvana the Band.
And are you worried about this being too derivative? I'm not one to talk, by the way, but are you worried about this being too derivative of other programs?
I mean, obviously, I think the style is inspired by these other shows, but I think the plot and everything is completely different. I don't know.
What we're trying to do, like I sort of mentioned before, but I'll come back to it, is in the home they live in together. If I may reference the pod, I kind of imagine it like the clubhouse that the Champagne Boys were thinking of going in on. That kind of deal. They would live in a place like that.
A bachelor.
Bachelor with one girl. Yeah. So we'd see scenes of them, their lives, them planning stuff there, and then that would be mixed with the guerrilla style in the real world.
Primate style
in the real world. Shit's gonna go wrong, or shit might go right. I think the only thing left to say is basically, and I've kind of touched on it a bit before, but
Oh, you're welcome.
The
it wasn't thank you. No, not yet.
I was gonna say the show is aimed at obviously the 18 to 35 demographic. Do you want to talk about the shows? It's kind of
The 18 to 35 demographic?
Yeah, you know a lot about it.
Well, we've mentioned
This
some.
is kind of a filler portion.
This is the filler.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Okay.
We've mentioned them. Yeah.
I think we get the
Let's
gist.
get to it, yeah.
Thanks for coming in and doing it. I'm curious, have any of your projects been successful to this point?
What would you consider successful?
Not unsuccessful. If we're looking to be involved in a project, what's your success rate? In your previous project?
How do you measure success?
I think we all work in the industry. We've all had success helping other people be successful, and we've learned from that, and now we're like, let's do our own thing.
But here's one of my concerns. You have 6 people in the troupe.
Yes.
Only 2 showed up today. To do a show like this, you're going to need people to show up on time, potentially a reshoot at some arbitrary random time. If they can't be trusted for this huge opportunity to appear on this podcast, how can they be trusted to be even in the web series?
I agree. Let's just tear them apart right now. All the people.
It's a legitimate question, though.
No, it's 100% a legitimate question. It does come down to this balance of right now, all of us in the troupe are working on big productions. And honestly, the reason I reached out to Shane was I kind of, when I listened to the podcast avidly, felt like a bit of a kinship because I feel like we're both very jokey people. We don't like to take ourselves overly seriously. And sometimes that leads to people not taking you seriously when you want to be taken seriously. So I've had that problem. So basically, we were trying to make this web series, and we needed a producer who had connections, who was interested in this kind of genre and this kind of style of comedy. I felt Shane was perfect for that. Let's see what happens, and if I can get them, it'll be a big accomplishment that honestly makes the group kind of take me more seriously, and also makes the world take the project more seriously.
Okay, I'm gonna try to I'll give my sort of recommendation.
Yeah.
I guess based on the pitch, I would have liked to have seen a pilot of some sort. I don't know how TV pitches work, but I've been looking at the same sort of animated GIFs or GIFs for a little while. So I think just an example of what that could look like. I think from a premise perspective, I think you might have more luck if you have budget to actually make sure that they can get access to these things and then see what happens. I think somebody walking into a hotel and trying to get a hotel room without money is nothing will happen. I think so. I think as part of the premise, I would like to see that. But what I would say is it seems very interesting to me. I get why it would be funny. I like the hell out of both of you. And then I think ultimately I cannot help you in this project whatsoever. I'm of no use at all. I don't do anything like this. And for that reason, I'm out.
Perfect. But what I would say is that you can almost help these people the most because you're our most connected friend in the sense that they mentioned literally Share Club in their pitch. You can let them into Share Club and just kind of...
Well, I think they need a producer that's able to pull all the strings, right? So as a producer, you could call me and say, hey, can you help them do something?
Okay, let me just, I guess, ask some producing questions. What would you expect from me as a producer?
You actually, that back and forth just kind of summed it up pretty well.
You just started producing for them.
You really did.
With this pitch, when I was just thinking of problems you're going to run into, because I've done this sort of filming people when they don't know they're being filming, kind of trying to prank with people. They always notice the camera. Nathan Fielder always gets away with it because he lets the people know right off the get, I'm part of a documentary crew. I'm shooting this for that. The guerrilla element, I feel like, is where you're going to kind of falter. And you're going to have to rely more on the scripted stuff. which unfortunately for me, my favorite brand of comedy is the part where you're fucking with real people. It's the only thing that really makes me laugh is cringeworthy stuff these days for some reason. That's my only aversion to this project.
Right.
So are you producing for them now, or what do you do? What's your situation?
Well, I need to see something to really believe in it. So for me, I would say, come back to me when you've shot some semblance of what you're happy with, and I want to see you guys say, this is what I find funny, and this is exactly in the pocket where we'd like it to be. And if I agree, I'll come on and help you guys the best I can and try to produce it. As is, I can't really tell.
No, that's totally fair. That totally makes sense. Yeah.
So for that reason.
And so for that reason, I'm going to pass it over to Mike and see what he says.
I have all the same I have all the same concerns that everybody does. I think you need like a proof of concept in a lot of ways, because even for something like this podcast that we do, you know, we recorded 3 full episodes where we like used Max to reach out for favors, Lights, Menno from Colorado, his wife Annie from Schitt's Creek. We did those interviews. They didn't know who I was, and we basically kind of hustled and wrangled. We got 3 full episodes, 3 hours of content that we presented in the initial pitch, and so then they could decide we want to move forward. If we had just tried to explain, oh, we want to do this thing where we're going to talk about what goes on in our lives in the start, and then Mike's going to sit down with a celebrity and talk for a long form interview, and then Shane's going to come on and do this thing called The Dessert. People will be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, here's something, listen to it, and then decide if you want to proceed. So I think that's your first hurdle. Secondly, this kind of shooting that you're talking about, and like obviously you guys, you know, you went to school and you've worked in comedy and stuff like that already, trying to make things. I'm sure you've done a bunch of skits. Even these, you know, GIFs that you have up right now, these look like they've come either from something you shot. Like, is this just, where'd you make these?
These are literally, you know, the live photo feature on an iPhone?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's literally that turned into GIFs, which is why...
Because it's your 4 characters. You just pose for like like sort of
and
like...
then you have to send them to yourself through like Facebook Messenger and then like create a video. Yeah,
and then put them into a collage.
That's why they're horrible quality.
That's why they're horrible quality, and it's trying to also sum up, like, he's the foodie, he's the travel guy, hence the air miles, the wine, she's passed out with a bottle.
Yeah, but not knowing you, it doesn't look ironic. It just looks like from a tech perspective, it's not.
That's true.
Great.
That's true.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think it's really hard to pull off. And if you can do it, I'm like, whenever I see something like Nirvana the band, I marvel at it. And I think those guys probably had a ton of practice and a ton of failure. And you just need extreme commitment. I think Shane mentioned this earlier. You guys have 6 people in your troupe. It's like I was in a band with 5 people, and it's like we were all on the same page. And things are going to get tough. And like you're going to try to shoot your pilot, and you're going to be like, fuck, this doesn't work, or we got shut down here, and we put in a whole 5 days, and we've got like 5 minutes of usable footage. This is a disaster. It's like, does everybody stay together and all that? You kind of need to go through the fire before I think people will go, oh, these 6 are worth investing in. And for that reason, I'm out.
Well said, Mike. Yeah, so obviously we're all out, but I hope you guys do this, and I wouldn't waste an opportunity when you're just at that green level. Like, I wouldn't just go to somebody who you deem like successful, be like, produce this, until you've been through the fire that Mike's talking about enough, where you're actually confident in your product. And always come with a product that you're proud of. Like, you sent me the Recess thing merely because you didn't have anything else. Because at least with nothing, it's like, what's that expression about? It's better to be thought of a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt, right? It's better someone thinks you might be bad than show them something that certainly isn't up to par with what your standards are. Anyway, thank you very much for showing up.
Us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to see whatever you do. I'm genuinely excited, because honestly, like, you guys do seem funny, and Sam, like, you've already made me laugh like 3 times just in like sort of your delivery and stuff like that. And I know
Josh a bit of a bore.
Well, he's pitching.
Yeah.
No, he's pitching. I get it. It's hard.
Josh just talks too much, and we've talked about he's wordy.
Yeah.
I am worried, yeah.
So hold on, you guys got to get something out of this. Can you plug the troupe or something? Like,
Yeah,
how do we promote you?
And by the way, it takes a lot of, you know, sort of gumption to even come on something like this and let people judge your shit, you know, because
I can't believe you got in here. I mean, to be 24 and to be in Much Music is fucking hard. And
well, it just goes to show that I will literally say yes to anything if someone DMs me.
Well, that was kind of the assumption.
Yeah.
I was riding on.
Right.
And then it was like, let's see. Because honestly, when I...
plug your troupe. I got a
plug
Miranda.
the troupe, plug your Instagram, plug anything.
I got to get out of here, so
May
please.
I plug my personal Instagram?
of course.
Plug it.
My Instagram is Samantha Wyss. That's WYSS. It's Swiss. That's it.
Cool.
It's a good plug. Josh, what do you got to plug?
My band would be the best
There
thing
you
to
go.
plug.
Hold on. You're in here plugging a comedy
Has nothing
troupe.
to do with
You've got
comedy.
a personal website or
No, I post a lot about my comedies. I have an improv team and everything.
There
So
you go.
that's why I'm plugging
already
that.
not showing a lot of togetherness with the troupe. We got
Yeah,
a band plug and a
what the-
personal Instagram
Well,
plug.
I guess what I should be plugging is we're going to go ahead. We're going to shoot a pilot for this. We're going to make this happen and plug in Gentlemen of Taste because we will make something of this. That is the goal.
So if you're listening to this and it's past the date of August 23rd, 2018, Google Gentlemen of Taste and you may see something.
Bingo.
Maybe don't Google it at work. I feel like Gentlemen of Taste has there could be some
Yeah.
real results
Yeah.
returned
Google
there.
That's tasting gentlemen.
Yeah.
You can lick my balls.
That's it. That's all. That is our episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Hayden Christensen for sitting down and hanging out. I'm sorry that off the top we didn't have Shane. I'm sorry in the back end we didn't have Max. I like it best when all three of us are together. So next week we will make that happen. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Mike on Much. You can find us everywhere podcasts are found. Thank you to everybody that listens every week. It really means the world. The Mike on Much podcast is produced by Max Kerman, and I'm your host, Mike Veerman. Thank you so much. No, that's not what I say. See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.